His best-selling biography challenges long-held assumptions about one of history's most enigmatic characters, Jesus of Nazareth. Religious scholar Reza Aslan is the author of Zealot, The Life and Times of Jesus of Nazareth. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you with us.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
So just to establish some things before we get into the questions, you're an evangelical, now you're a Muslim, yet you say you're still a follower of Jesus. Can you sort of explain that?
Well, that's the whole reason that I wrote the book, actually, is to say that just Jesus the man, regardless of what else you may think that he is, whether he's the Messiah or the Son of God or God incarnate, just Jesus the man and the basic outlines of his life story are worthy of knowing and following. I mean, I truly do believe that you can be a follower of Jesus and not necessarily be a Christian.
Now, your book got a lot of attention when an interviewer suggested that you couldn't be fair and balanced because you were a Muslim. And beyond that, some people may say, why should they trust you over their pastor?
Right.
So how do you answer those people who may be defensive about their religion?
Well, if you want to learn about Jesus Christ, you should ask your pastor. But if you want to know about Jesus of Nazareth, the man who actually lived 2,000 years ago in the Holy Land, this very likely illiterate, poor, pious Jewish peasant, then that's what this book is about. So it doesn't challenge Christianity because Jesus wasn't a Christian. Jesus was a Jew.
Let's take a look at a quote from the book, and it says, Jesus bears little resemblance to the image of the gentle shepherd cultivated by the early Christian community. And you say the historical Jesus is a zealous revolutionary. So how and why did that portrayal get lost?
Well, let me put it this way. If you know nothing else about Jesus except that he was crucified, you know enough to challenge that traditional image. I mean, crucifixion was a punishment that Rome reserved almost exclusively for crimes against the state: rebellion, sedition, treason. These were the crimes that you could be crucified for. And so the notion of Jesus as this kind of pacifistic preacher of good works with no concern about the cares of this world, frankly, that Jesus would have gone unnoticed by Rome. But when the Gospels were written after 70 AD, with the destruction of Jerusalem after the Jewish revolt, it was very important to kind of remove some of those revolutionary aspects about Jesus, and that's where we get this impression of him as this kind of celestial spirit.
You say much of the writings of the Gospel have been lost in translation. Can you give us some examples?
Well, I guess the best example is one that I've mentioned already, this notion that Jesus was crucified alongside two thieves. The Greek word there is lestai, which doesn't mean thief, it means bandits. And bandit was the most common term that Rome used to define a rebel, an insurrectionist. So that alone should give you this new impression, Jesus alongside two other rebels crucified on Golgotha.
Let me touch on another example. You say the way the Gospels portray Pontius Pilate is pure fiction. Explain that.
Yes, so in the Gospels, Pontius Pilate is this kind of weak-willed but honest man who truly believes Jesus is innocent and really wants to do everything in his power to release him, but the Jewish authorities twist his arm and he has no choice but to give in to them. Well, we know a little bit about the historical Pontius Pilate, and what we know about him is that this is a man who sent so many Jews to the cross without trial that a formal complaint was lodged against him in Rome. He was ultimately removed from office. This is a man who on a regular basis sent his troops out onto the streets of Jerusalem to slaughter the Jews when they disagreed with even the slightest of his decisions.
So is it your feeling that Jesus and his disciples set out to fulfill the prophecies purposely? Did the gospel writers fulfill it for him after the fact, or a combination of the both?
Well, there are so many prophecies about who the Messiah is supposed to be, and so many of them in conflict, and there's no question that Jesus and his disciples set out to fulfill some of those. But after his death and the fact that he died without fulfilling the most important role for the Messiah, which is the reestablishment of the kingdom of David, it was important for his followers to look to other prophecies and then to match his life with those prophecies instead.
If they were so concerned of fulfilling prophecies, then why did they bring resurrection into this? Because that is not part of Jewish prophecy.
You're absolutely right. Resurrection is not part of Jewish prophecy. That's absolutely correct. But the fact of the matter is that very soon after Jesus' death, his disciples claim to have had this mystical experience of him risen. You can define that however you want to, but the fact of the matter is that it was that mystical experience that ultimately created the largest religion in the world.
So should any of the things that people may read in your book that might be new or different to them, may conflict with previously held beliefs, should any of those things change the way Christians believe or behave?
I don't think so. In fact, the Christian response to this book has been overwhelmingly positive. I mean, if you believe that Jesus was both fully God and fully man, then you need to explore the fully man part. That person lived in a specific time and place, and that time and place really influenced who he was. So there's no reason why there should be a conflict between the two at all.
The book is called Zealot. Riz Aslan, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Great book, great read. Let's get a check of the weather. Hold there, Paul.